Hi everyone, it's Emma here, and this week I am talking through 6 reasons for sudden heavy periods. So heavy periods is something we often don't talk about too much. Women can be embarrassed in some cases, or sometimes they just think this is normal and don't really compare it to anything else. So it's something that sometimes we don't talk about, but here at Evogo we like to talk about it more and make sure women are kind of rightly informed and know where they stand and know how to help manage their symptoms. So when it comes to heavy period, some women won't really understand initially what a heavy period is. So by definition, a heavy period is losing more than 60 to 80 mils of blood or more than 3 to 5 tablespoons worth. But for many people, you're not going to measure your blood loss to that extent. So what signs could suggest that you are experiencing heavier than normal periods? So a good guide is to go by your sanitary products. So if you're using kind of heavy flow products and you're getting through them quite quickly, or you're bleeding quite heavily through the night, for example, over that period of time, then that could suggest that you are having heavier periods. Also leakages, you're needing to change regularly. The other interesting thing is the frequency, both of how often you're bleeding. So that's the length of your cycle, whether it's 28 days or a bit shorter. So if it's more frequent, then you are losing more blood, but also how long your period is actually lasting. So for some women, they might have a slightly heavier period for a day or two, and then it kind of tails off. Whereas if you're experiencing quite heavy blood loss for more than 2 days, 3, 4, 5, even up to 7 days, then obviously that would really add to the amount you're losing overall. Blood clots can obviously be another sign that you're losing more blood at the one time. And then we have symptoms of anemia to look out for as well, and that's a sign that you're losing more iron. So fatigue, shortness of breath, although we would want you to get that checked, palpitations, pale skin, any of these warning signs, we would really want you definitely to get that checked to help confirm if you might be at risk of anemia or not, because there is iron supplements you can take, some gentle iron supplements such as your Floridix, which can help to replace some of that lost iron if need be. So next I'm going to be talking about reasons for heavy periods, so why you might be experiencing heavy periods. Perhaps you have for a while, or perhaps it's a bit of a new symptom, but either way we really want to try and understand why that might be happening so you can help to better manage your symptoms. So number 1 on my list is changes to your weight. We know for one, and this can go either way, whether we've put weight on or lost weight, but your weight can actually have an impact on your hormones. So if we harbour more fat cells, that could potentially up your estrogen levels slightly, because our adipose cells can actually harbour estrogen, and that can increase your estrogen levels overall slightly, and that can contribute towards what we call estrogen dominance. So estrogen dominance is more so related with your kind of heavier painful periods, and perhaps with a shorter frequency of your cycle, like I was saying. So you're getting more frequent periods and ultimately you're losing more blood overall. Just one that I wanted to mention next is medications. So depending what medications you're on, we would always say to read any associated side effects anyway, but there are a couple of medications that I've got on my list, including aspirin and other anticoagulants, and they just affect how your blood clots and potentially could contribute to heavier bleeds. So it is just something to be aware of if you're on any medications, just to read the leaflet inside, the information leaflet of, and to be aware of any possible side effects just in case that's contributing. Number 3 is changes to your birth control. So again, another type of medication, but more specifically regulating and influencing your hormones. So of course that's what birth control is intending to do. It is influencing your hormones in a certain way to help prevent pregnancy, but it could be that this imbalance in your hormones is giving you side effects, and heavy bleeding could be one. In some cases, some of the progesterone-based methods, so that's the mini pill or the coil or the injection, for example, sometimes they can cause quite heavy bleeding, at least initially. Over time, that should calm, and in many cases your period then disappears completely with these methods. But it is something to consider that if you're losing a lot of blood, don't just put up with it. It needs to be checked by your doctor. You should have your iron levels checked, and if it is on an ongoing basis, it might just be that that balance of hormones isn't working particularly well for you, and your doctor would be able to suggest an alternative potentially. So again, it's just something to be aware of, and it's something that we shouldn't have to put up with if it is potentially affecting our quality of life. Number 4 is just the possibility of an underlying condition. So there is some conditions that could potentially contribute to heavier bleeds. Some affecting the uterus particularly include your fibroids, endometriosis. These kind of conditions could contribute to heavier bleeds, and again, we would just want to chat to your doctor to help them diagnose any possible conditions or rule them out, just so we know where we stand and we can work towards managing them a little bit better. Thyroid as well as the other one. Your thyroid is very in sync with your sex hormones, so potentially there could just be an imbalance there in some of your hormones. So again, we would want that check just to potentially rule it out and give us a better idea of what the likely cause is. Number 5 is PMS, and unfortunately PMS is quite common, it's on the rise, and it is associated with this kind of hormone imbalance where estrogen dominance is quite often likely, and this kind of estrogen dominance, hormone imbalance can potentially contribute to heavier bleeds, more frequent bleeds, longer periods, those kind of typical symptoms. Next up is menopause. So although during menopause and when we actually reach menopause, our periods will stop, actually quite often in the perimenopause and the lead up to the menopause, sometimes periods can become heavier for some time, and that's just as our hormones are fluctuating. Estrogen in particular is fluctuating, and that can give rise to a whole number of symptoms, in some cases heavier periods as well. Then in light of all that, I just want to mention our Agnus castus. So this is a license for symptoms of PMS, which can include symptoms such as your painful periods, bloating, irritability, tender breasts, and quite often a number of these symptoms can go hand in hand with the heavier periods as well. So if some of these symptoms seem quite relevant to you, then the Agnus castus could be an option to help manage some of those symptoms. In terms of the Agnus castus, you shouldn't take it if you're on any hormonal contraceptives. You should take it every single day of your cycle, not just when you're experiencing your worst symptoms. And also for best effects, we would want you to take it for at least 3 monthly cycles as well. So we'd want you to continue it for at least 3 monthly cycles for best effects.